and welcome to Podcast 5. In this podcast, I will discuss sex discrimination and sexual harassment as it pertains to Stony Brook's campus safety policies. First, I will explain some policies at the federal and Stony Brook University level. Then I will explain two types of sexual harassment. Finally, I will provide information on how to report acts of sexual violence or sex discrimination and the processes that follow. There is a federal law that is important to keep in mind when discussing the subjects of sex discrimination and sexual harassment on a university campus. Title IX is a part of the Education Amendments of 1972, which amended the Civil Rights Act of 1964. This law states that no person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to the discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. Sex discrimination, as per Title IX, is interpreted as all forms of sexual harassment, including verbal sexual harassment and sexual violence by employees, students, or third parties against employees, students, or third parties. Also, unequal pay based on gender, discrimination on basis of pregnancy, unequal distributions of athletic funds, unequal admissions, and financial aid practices are unlawful under Title IX. Before going further, it is important for me to give you a clear definition of sexual harassment. According to the Equal Opportunity Commission, sexual harassment is defined as any unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, or other verbal or physical conduct of a sexual nature. Harassment is illegal when it is so frequent or severe that it creates a hostile or offensive work environment. Going back again to Title IX legislation, sexual violence is interpreted by Stony Brook University as sexual assault, rape, and/or coercion. The university has policies in place that reflect the Title IX law. They are also part of an effort to create a safe campus environment for everyone. The first policy is known as P106. And states that the university reaffirms the principle that students, faculty, and staff have the right to be free from discrimination based upon gender, commonly known as sexual harassment. Harassment on the basis of gender violates Title VII of the Civil Rights Act and Title IX of the Education Amendments for 1972. According to the Stony Brook University policy, the university is responsible for and fully committed to the prevention and elimination of gender harassment. Supervisors and department heads are responsible for promoting an atmosphere that prohibits such unacceptable behavior. Unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and verbal or physical conduct of an abusive sexual nature constitute harassment when such conduct interferes with an individual's work or academic performance, or creates an intimidating, hostile, or offensive work or academic environment. Harassment of employees by supervisors or of students by faculty or administrators is unlawful. Conversely, harassment of supervisors by employees, faculty by students, or individuals by coworkers is also unlawful. Finally, the university does not tolerate gender harassment and treats it as a form of misconduct. Sanctions are enforced against individuals engaging in such behavior. For more information on P106, you can visit the policy website and click the sexual harassment link. Another important policy that pertains to sex discrimination and sexual harassment on campus is P208. This Stony Brook policy states that all university employees, including administrative staff, medical personnel, full and part-time faculty, teaching assistants, and academic mentors, act on behalf of the university and with its authority when supervising or evaluating student work, assigning grades for credit, or acting in an advisory capacity. This policy is important when considering possible acts of sex discrimination when it comes to personal relationships. The university states that familial, romantic, and sexual relationships compromise the objectivity and integrity with which university employees discharge their academic, administrative, and supervisory responsibilities. The use of the student-faculty or student-supervisor relationship to seek or maintain a personal relationship is an abuse of power and is specifically prohibited by campus policies P105, Equal Opportunity / Affirmative Action, and P106, Sexual Harassment. As many of you will also be employed on campus, Stony Brook University's Human Resources Department's specific policy on sexual harassment is also important to know. HR policy states that sexual harassment infringes on an employee's right to a comfortable work environment and is a form of misconduct which undermines the integrity of the employment relationship. Finally, the Stony Brook University Student Conduct Code, which is approved by the Stony Brook Council, includes a detailed policy pertaining to sexual harassment termed the Sexual Misconduct Policy. On your screen, you will see a copy of this policy as I read it. Sexual Misconduct Policy. The university considers the following violations of the code as extremely serious. If a violation occurs, the sanction will ordinarily be suspension from the university. In such cases, the exceptional procedure of executive suspension may also be invoked. Sexual harassment. No student shall participate in creating an environment that is sexually intimidating, abusive, hostile, sufficiently severe, pervasive, and objectively offensive to others. This includes, but is not limited to, unwelcome sexual reference or gestures, sexual exploitation, sexual comments, teasing, sexual slurs, derogatory statements, or other verbal abuse, graphic or sexually suggestive comments about an individual's attire or body, inquiries or discussions about sexual activities, sexually suggestive letters or other written materials, sexual touching, brushing up against another in a sexual manner, graphic or sexually suggestive gestures, cornering, pinching, grabbing, kissing, or fondling. Sexual abuse and/or assault. No student shall engage in sexual contact with another person without consent. This includes, but is not limited to, non-consensual sexual contact, attempted non-consensual penetration, attempted non-consensual anal intercourse, oral sex, or the insertion of a foreign object into the vagina, urethra, penis, or rectum of another. In addition, no student shall engage in non-consensual physical assault during a consensual sexual contact, such as punching, choking, burning, or otherwise intentionally causing serious physical harm without consent of a partner. Rape. No student shall engage in sexual intercourse with another without the individual's consent. If intercourse takes place without consent, it is considered rape. If an individual says no, regardless of the circumstances, it is not a matter for interpretation. No means no. Sexual intercourse following a spoken no or any other expression of refusal, even without further resistance of any kind by the individual, is rape. Consent cannot be given if an individual is under the age of 17, physically helpless, mentally incapacitated, impaired, and/or incapacitated because of drug or alcohol intoxication. If a person is unconscious or their judgment is impaired by alcohol or drugs, they cannot give consent. The offender is responsible for their actions no matter how intoxicated they themselves may be. Consent is the agreement to engage in specific sexual contact. This may be given by verbal agreement or active and willing participation in the sexual activity. Silence, previous sexual relationships, current relationships, or the use of alcohol and/or drugs cannot be taken as an indication of consent. The use of force, threat of immediate or future harm, or use of physical intimidation to secure compliance with sexual activity implies lack of consent. Although consent may be initially given, it may be revoked at any point, either verbally, through physical resistance, or by losing consciousness. Failure to respond promptly to a withdrawal of consent constitutes sexual assault. Resolving complaints of sexual misconduct. Complaints of sexual misconduct shall be received, investigated, and adjudicated pursuant to the Stony Brook University judicial procedures. The Office of University Community Standards, after consultation with the complainant, shall determine which procedures shall be applied to receive, investigate, and adjudicate the complaint. The prior sexual experiences of the alleged victim of a sexual assault will not be considered in the determination of responsibility to a charge of any sexual assault violation. Sexual harassment is a serious issue, and Stony Brook University does not take it lightly, as I have made clear by providing you with the numerous campus policies. It is my hope that you take Stony Brook's no-tolerance policy towards sexual harassment and discrimination very seriously. Furthermore, please use these policies to understand your right and the right of others on campus to not tolerate any unwanted advances or unfair treatment. Before getting to the reporting options and procedures at Stony Brook University, I would like to give you 2 examples of specific types of sexual harassment. The first type is quid pro quo, where someone in a position of authority or perceived authority uses their position to make any work or education-related advancements, such as grades, salary, or promotion, contingent on a request for sexual favors. Basically, this type means if you are unwilling to commit a sexual act, you will not be given your due advancement for your hard work in the class or at your job. Quid pro quo can also be referred to as this for that. It could be committed by an academic advisor, a professor, or a supervisor. The second example is known as hostile environment. This is the most common form of sexual harassment in that it can be committed by anyone. To define this type, we can look back to the definition of sexual harassment that I gave you earlier. It states that sexual harassment is any unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and other verbal or physical conduct of a sexual nature. These incidences create hostile environments around their victims where safety is compromised. Sexual harassment can be committed towards anyone, no matter what their gender, sex, or sexual orientation is. Any unwelcome behavior towards an individual is harassment. Next, I would like to inform you about reporting. The people on campus who are most likely to receive initial reports of sex discrimination or sexual harassment are the individuals who have a lot of direct interactions with students. These include faculty, other students, coaches, staff members, administrators, student leaders, residence life staff, and health center staff. Speaking with these people is a great first step. Stony Brook University has been diligent in educating the campus community on how to handle reports of sexual harassment through workshops, info sessions, pamphlets, websites, and more. After speaking with one of these community members, you will likely learn about the following options where you can begin the formal reporting process. First, you can bring reports of sexual harassment and sex discrimination to Stony Brook University's Title IX coordinator, whose contact information is listed here. The Office of Diversity and Affirmative Action, which can be found on the second floor of the administration building, is another university location where you can proactively report. Furthermore, the University Police Department is another place to make a report. Finally, you can make inquiries to any of the previously mentioned resources about reporting and about health services available to victims. If you decide to report or are considering reporting an incident or incidences, you may wonder what information is important to include. According to the Office of Diversity and Affirmative Action, any observed, experienced, or known sex discrimination, including sexual harassment and sexual violence, is important to report. It does not matter if the incident occurred on campus or off campus, on spring break in Mexico, last week, or 2 years ago. Stony Brook University encourages any victim of sexual harassment or sex discrimination to report. Reporting is done in a safe space where you will be heard by professionals who are well-versed in guiding you through the procedures to come. Your safety and well-being are a priority when a report is made. Reports can also come from a victim's partner, friends, or any witnesses. If you witness sexual harassment towards another student, a professor, a staff member, or a colleague, you can report it. After a report is made, an investigation is the next step. Often witnesses will be asked to share their accounts of what they saw or heard. Any witnesses are protected by university policy against retaliation. Investigations can have many varied outcomes, including university disciplinary actions and legal ramifications for the guilty party. Investigations are taken very seriously and can lead to meaningful changes and solutions for the victim and the campus community. To conclude this podcast on sex discrimination and sexual harassment, I would like to read to you an excerpt from the University President Samuel Stanley's memorandum to the campus community on January 21, 2014. Stony Brook University, including Stony Brook Medicine, Long Island State Veterans Home, and all other Stony Brook University facilities and programs, has a long-standing commitment to equal employment and educational opportunity, and environments that foster respect, dignity, fairness, and equity. The Stony Brook University community includes but is not limited to employees, students, visitors, guests, contractors, and vendors associated with the institution. Stony Brook University is committed to creating and maintaining workplace, educational, and recreational environments that are safe and accessible and free of all forms of discrimination, discriminatory harassment, and sexual harassment, including non-consensual sexual contact, sexual violence, domestic violence, and stalking. I hope you have learned some meaningful information about sexual harassment and sex discrimination and feel more informed about university policy and procedure regarding these issues. I invite you to continue educating yourself by using the resources provided by the Office of Diversity and Affirmative Action and by the Center for Prevention and Outreach. I will see you in Podcast 6, where I will discuss Teaching, Learning, and Technology, a division of information technology on campus, and the university libraries.